Okay, so today's topic, is it really better to have loved and lost? I think it all comes to bear after reading this. This one is from an anonymous viewer who wants to hear your take on it, guys. Here goes. It says, so I was thinking about what girlfriend would be best for me. And one thought was, maybe she needs to be older than I am. Just because I harmonize better with older people. Like you, no offense. None taken. On the other hand, I can imagine a relationship with a childish girl. There needs to be an adult atmosphere in my relationship, I think. But here comes the point. Now, I met a 29-year-old, and I am 22. By random chance, and maybe there is something coming up. And now I'm thinking again, is it what I want? What if she wants a child in the next few years? Because 29 is such an age where women could want children. But I definitely don't want children so early. Now, I don't mind if she's older than me, but the children thought bothers me. What if? I would have a relationship over some time, but when she wanted a child, I would have to leave her and I would be an ass. I don't really know what to do, but it is a thing that bothers me. What do you think? Okay, well, I really have been looking forward to reading this because I've had a very similar, well, I guess I've dealt with this a couple of times in my life. No children, have cats instead, says Beck. All right, so I've had some very, very wise friends and teachers in my life, and I've heard this a lot. In the seduction community, and especially the relationship science community, there seems to be a recurring theme that people recommend that a man be somewhat older than the woman in the relationship. Or in the case of a gay couple, then whichever partner is assuming a more masculine role should be a little bit older. Now, the reasons for this are various. A lot of it goes back to biology and, the caveman mentality, and the desire for security, to be protected, to have someone with a few more miles on them, perhaps just for safety, security, and protection on a biological level. But also, it comes down to respect. I'm not saying that it's good or bad, but it seems to be a theme that a lot of relationships seem to polarize, where somebody kind of takes the lead in certain areas in life, and then the other person takes the lead in others. So maybe it's an issue of respect also, where people seem to think that it is a good idea that the man be a little bit older, or the more masculine partner in gay couples. So there's a biological reason for that as well. Safety, security, it also seems to keep the passion alive more. But the other issue could be more psychological, like respect, things like that, or trust. Some people would say it's easier to trust a partner that is older, which is interesting. So I've actually personally had an experience with this, because even though I understand that that might be the ideal situation in most cases, I have never followed that rule. All of my long-term relationships have been with older women, usually about 5 years older than me, and that does create its own problems. But we'll get to that in a second. Let's see what chat's got to say. Nami AEK Pod says, man up, start a life with her. Good advice, good advice. And we'll get to that too. That is one polarity of a philosophy that might apply here, but we're going to look at both of them. Thank you for that comment, Nami, by the way. Parzival says, sounds like this needs to be discussed before going into a relationship to see what each other's expectations are. Well said. Noodles says, at 28, you should be at a stage where you can be very honest about expectations early in a relationship, so neither party gets caught off guard. It's something that you develop through your early 20s, and as you start to understand that not being clear about important issues can lead to hurt, so you become very upfront with your partners as to save them from being hurt. Straight up. Yeah, Taxes. Noodles did that thing where you hit a nail on the head. Yeah. You got it. And that kind of leads me to the next point. First of all, I think that the age gap matters a little bit more when you're young. As you get older, it matters less and less, perhaps because both partners are more communicative and they know what they want more, and they've been through it a couple times, so they know what not to do. But communication definitely is, of course, the key here. Once the relationship hits a serious level, it is imperative that you discuss the situation and make each of your feelings known. Now, if you both love each other and if you're serious, there are two different types of people in the world. For some, it is obviously wise to take Lord Tennyson's advice here. And we'll throw this out. This is a poem, of course, the title of the stream, by Lord Tennyson, who was a romantic poet hundreds of years ago, wrote a lot of poetry about romance. I mean, this was, and chivalry, Arthurian legends. King Arthur, he wrote some stuff about that. But here's a poem that addresses this. And hey, where's my music? Yeah, okay. All right. This is a poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson. I envy not in any moods the captive void of noble rage, the linnet born within the cage that never knew the summer woods. I envy not the beast that takes his license in the field of time, unfettered by the sense of crime, to whom a conscience never wakes. Nor what may count itself as blessed, the heart that never plighted troth, but stagnates in the weeds of sloth, nor any want begotten rest. I hold it true, whate'er befall, I feel it when I sorrow most. 'Tis better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. So, assuming that you guys have communicated and made your feelings clear and what you want out of life, then you have a choice to make. Both of you have this choice. Do you live in the moment and man up and start a life with her, as Nami says? That is up to you. If you are able to live fully in the moment with a girl, knowing that it all could come crashing down tomorrow, because it always can and usually does at some point. Every relationship ends one way or another, either by death or separation. So you know it's going to end. And if it's worth it to you to plow through and live in the moment and just see how it goes, then as long as you've communicated and you've both expressed that, concern, then enjoy. Live in the moment. We don't always get another chance. Let's look at chat again. Becca says, yeah, Boyke, age is just a number once you are a certain age. Straight up. Rebecca says, when you're older than the legal age, you can have a relationship with anyone who isn't underage. Like you can be 18, but your lover could be 70. True. But only if Patrick Stewart says it. Hennisfer says, I've had both sides of the relationship with older and younger partners, and I can say that your age alone is not representative. It depends on how you behave, no matter how old you are. And Hennisfer, I do believe that, let's clarify this, at least when I use the term older, definitely physical years and age is not really what I'm talking about. I'm definitely talking about maturity. As the viewer commented, I'm assuming it's a man, but again, it could be a woman. But the viewer says that they resonate more with older people. I've always been that way too. So I guess that's why I've always ended up in a relationship with older women. 10 years apart is very common. This seems to be the 10-year age gap difference has been used by a lot of counselors, psychologists, relationship therapists, and it seems to be 5 to 10 years is supposed to be a good mark. Yep, and my parents also are 14 years apart, Parzival. My father is 14 years older than my mom. But with that in mind, I want to share my personal experience that I have had throughout my life with this. with special emphasis on my first long relationship. Phaserface will remember this to his chagrin, as will my sister. But my very first long relationship was also with a woman 5 years my senior. And it became clear some years into the relationship that she wanted marriage and children. Now, my problem at the time, I did make it clear, like the viewer said, that at that moment I did not want either of those things. And when she asked me what time in life I would want them so she could start planning her life, I didn't have an answer. I had to say, I don't know. I'll probably want kids someday, but not for a long time. We both loved each other very much, and the years just passed, and slowly a sort of resentment built up, and an impatience. But the problem was that we both were so comfortable in the relationship, and we loved each other so much that we both stayed in a relationship for too long. Her ideal childbearing age came and went. She did end up, we did separate, and because of all of that tension, the separation was not pretty. It was just really painful, for both of us. She did, after we separated, ended up getting married very quickly and having children, almost as if she was rushing. It wasn't that she was biologically too old to have children, but she wanted children by 28, and 30 came and went for her. And that was very painful. So sometimes it takes courage, not only to communicate your feelings, but also for both people to decide when that moment is. And if you can do it before hard feelings build up, so much the better. But a lot of that was driven by the fact that she was 5 years older than me. So the viewer's concern is valid. But again, if you both communicate, and then when she's ready, separate, and that would probably be better than making it last forever, like I did. Well, let's look at chat. Says, Rebecca says, my dad is the baby of the couple. Interesting. Becca says, Mac wants cats, not kids. At the moment, absolutely. I love cats. Yep. Phaser buries head in hands. He remembers, poor Phaser has had to take care of me after every major breakup. But, I think let's get back to that main topic again that Tennyson was talking about. Now, after having this happen a couple of times in my life, there are people who got balls, and they would much rather live in the moment and love with all of their hearts, knowing that it would be ripped out in a day. That's amazing courage. For me, at this stage of life, I'm a little bit more gun-shy than I was when I was younger. And if I look back on that relationship, my very first one, was it better to have loved and lost? If I had it over, or if I could do it over again, would I? For me, right now, the answer is no. I would have made another choice. I probably would have stayed single or something like that if I had the choice. So I think at this stage in my life, I disagree with Tennyson here. Sometimes it's not better to have loved and lost. However, I think that our position on that will change several times in life. In my early 20s, I was much more gung-ho about it. Armbar says that is a hard question to think about, isn't it? I'm going to read another poem for you here that addresses this kind of. And this is by a magnificent poet I'm sure a lot of you know. This is Rumi, a very ancient and famous Sufi poet. And Sufism is a mystical branch of Islam devoted to beauty and art. So as you can imagine, Sufism is highly persecuted among mainstream Islam. And it's almost been all but wiped out, they say. True, Parsifal says, I agree, but it's a good learning experience, even though it was a hurtful one. No doubt about that, my friend. And it's not as if we have a choice, right? The heart will make its own decisions anyway. So for some of us, to even think we have a choice in the matter is probably pushing it. But here's a poem from Rumi. It's called Stay Close, My Heart. Stay close, my heart, to the one who knows your ways. Come into the shade of the tree that always has fresh flowers. Do not stroll idly through the bazaar of the perfume markers. Stay in the shop of the sugar seller. If you don't find true balance, anyone can deceive you, and anything can deceive you. Any one trick out of a thing of straw. Oh, excuse me. Anyone can trick out of a thing of straw and make you take it for gold. Don't squat with a bowl before every boiling pot. In each pot on the fire you find very different things. Not all sugar canes have sugar. Not all abysses a peak. Not all eyes possess vision. Not every sea is full of pearls. O nightingale, with your voice of dark honey, go on lamenting. Only your drunken ecstasy can pierce the rock's hard heart. Surrender yourself, and if you cannot be welcomed by the friend, know that you are rebelling inwardly like a thread that does not want to go through the needle's eye. The awakened heart is a lamp. Protect it by the hem of your robe. And when you've left this storm, you will come to a fountain. You'll find a friend there who will always nourish your soul. And with your soul always green, you'll grow into a tall tree, flowering always with sweet, light fruit, whose growth is interior. Wow. As always, very, very few poets can capture beauty like the Sufis. That one's from Rumi. So, if you do not find true balance, anyone can deceive you. I think that this poem is about finding that balance between not being completely careless to the point of stupidity, but also not closing your heart, you know? And that is a balance that is not easy. And philosophers have been discussing this, poets have been writing about it for thousands of years. And this is something, like Parsifal brought up, that cannot be taught. It has to be learned. So, I mean, that line right there, O nightingale with your voice of dark honey, go on lamenting, for only your drunken ecstasy can pierce the rock's hard heart. That's kind of what he's talking about. You know, it's hard not to close it off. But deep thoughts. So what about you? And I know that it would take a lifetime to decide, guys. But if you were in the viewer's shoes, you know, and you had this question in your own personal experience, is it better to have loved and lost? Or have there been relationships in your life, deep, passionate, love-based relationships, not flings, but have there been relationships in your life where you would say, if you had to do it over again, you would decide to not engage in that relationship? What do you think, guys? The 8-bit pianist. Hello. How are you? It's been a while. Cheers. Welcome. Parsifal says that's some deep stuff right there. I've been taught a couple of times, but it's how you come out the other end. True that, my friend. Noodles says, I'm the opposite, Mac. I feel like I've gained so much experience about myself and harnessed in ways that will better my future. Every time something breaks, you get to do a diagnosis and learn a lot of new things, using the lessons you teach yourself to build something better with the next partner you decide to be let in. Truth all the way around, my friend. You can't argue with that, Noodles. Thanks, brother. Armbar says, I think it's better to go for it than let it slip away and have it stuck back in the back of your head, thinking what could have been. Sometimes we must take roads that we don't know where we're going, and at the end of that road, you know more about yourself, whether the outcome is good or bad. The 8-bit pianist says, completely worn out of my voice today, did a bunch of narration. Oh, sweet. Then sung over my playing for 3 hours. I know, that's why this stream is going to be a lot shorter, because I have some singing to do tonight, and I found that when I do this much talking, you know, it's just kind of like singing. Noodle says, I would hate to be like 35 hitting my first breakup. Aye, well said. Tax says, I lost my virginity at 35. Hennisfer says, I think it's worth a try. Afterwards, even if it was hurtful, there was a better chance for oneself to decide or to try again, or knowing what you want in a relationship. If you never tried it, you'll never ask yourself, how would it be if? It's true. It seems like most of you would advise the viewer to go for it, regardless. As long, as we said, as long as you both have communicated and let it be known. Wow. Lots of sirens out there. Somebody got hurt. That's sad. But assuming that you all have communicated about this openly and honestly, which does take practice and courage, there still could be... There are times when neither party will know. Neither party will say... She might say, you know, at 29, she might say, I don't know. I want kids, but I don't know when. You know? If it is the case that neither of you know for sure, but you really love each other, and I think that then it's clear. If you both can make peace with the fact that it could end instantly, and that you might have to deal with a painful separation later, if you both are okay with that, and neither of you knows for sure what exactly you want, that's okay too. Go for it. Carpe diem, right? Oh, we get sirens, military planes, Hurons, etc. Yeah, Oh, the special thinking stuff again. Hi. Ode, what do you think? Is it better to have loved than lost? Do you have relationships in your past that you wish that you never engaged in? Or has each one been a valuable learning experience and you do it all over again? I seem to think that chat's voting for Carpe Diem here, right? I like it. Ooh, I love the sound of a chopper. Rebecca says, I'm trying to get a friend on stream. Oh. What do you mean like a... Oh, Becca says, I'm a virgin and proud of it. Nothing wrong with that, girl. Nothing wrong with that. 8-bit. Oh, it says, nope, I regret every facet of love in my life. Becca, thank you for the host. That's funny. Well, I was just saying that I, of course, know that it is not a healthy thing, maybe emotionally or psychologically, to avoid relationships in an attempt to avoid pain, oftentimes because we don't always have a choice. What was that? Another Sufi poet actually said, think not that you can control the course of love, for if it finds you worthy, it will control your course. Which I've found is very true in my life. No matter what I wanted, you know, when it's right, and it just happens. But there have been cases, like the viewer dealt with, where I felt that we both knew that what we were going into wouldn't work for long, and we let it go on too long. So in retrospect, that particular relationship, I would say that I would rather have not engaged in it. But the rest of this beautiful chat seems to think that it's better to go for it, like Tennyson says. That's hilarious, Ode. Straight up, well said. Ode says you can't really avoid the pain, so why bother avoiding stuff? It's true. Well, the last poem that we read before you came in suggested that a good balance was necessary. On the one hand, he says, "O nightingale, with your voice of dark honey, go on lamenting. Only your drunken ecstasy can pierce the rock's hard heart." However, in the very next line, he says, "The awakened heart is a lamp. Protect it by the hem of your robe." So perhaps there is a balance to be found like everything else in life, right? Oh, that's wonderful. I think that we've now given some wonderful food for thought to the viewer who wrote in with that topic for today's Deep Thoughts. Thank you guys for joining me on this.